Giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai by Hashem Howard Chakodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders here at Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the Lord's hopefully leg. So this DNA testing company called 23andMe, which is owned by Amalek, is now, I think in May, going to be selling off their company to the highest bidder. Now, why does this matter? Well, you may not have been, unless you've been around long enough, but there was a brief period in time where you had Hebrew Israelites who accused anybody who wasn't willing to get a DNA test to be afraid of the results. And they believed that using Esau's system and having them prove to you that you have this gene, which I think comes from the people of Ghana, or it shows that your people had once been in Ghana, then that means that you're not an Israelite and you're too afraid to prove you're an Israelite. This is back when people will say, why don't you prove to me that you're an Israelite? And we say we prove by the scriptures, and they'll say, no, I want you to go get a DNA test, because this is back when these things kind of popped off. They were saying you're too scared, you're afraid. And we used to say, like, one, you don't need to do that to prove you're an Israelite. And two, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because you're literally just giving your most vital information to the devil. And you had Israelites that went and did it, and they recorded themselves proving, this is how I know I'm not afraid. Unlike y'all, I went and got my test, and this proves and it says that I have this DNA strand, so I know I'm an Israelite. Why don't y'all do it? And guess what? Them guys they ain't around no more. They ain't teaching. So what was the point of that test? But we told them that in the long run they're going to regret it, because one, is not wise. Two, you don't need, well, one, you don't need to do it, and two, it's not wise. And then as time progressed, you know what you find out is that those DNA, and this is, I should say, it's not a DNA test, it's an ancestry test. This is them trying to prove that where they come from, that it goes back to the Hebrews. They're going to rely on Esau, Edom, the devil, the one who told us that we were Black, Latino, Native American, the one that hid our biblical nationality from us and stole our language. They're going to rely on this man to then tell them the truth and say, yep, indeed, you are a descendant of a Hebrew slave, or you are a descendant of a Hebrew. What a joke. And what we told them was that, well, what you find out in the long run is that they can't even tell you that. You want to know why? Because they even tell you that when it comes to the so-called ancestry test, all they're doing is estimations. They can't actually tell you who you come from. And they're going off of your mother's side anyway. Now, you know, the scripture says that your genealogy is determined by your father. They admit that they have absolutely no idea who you come from. They just take your information and then they just give you approximations of percentages. And they'll basically admit, so yes, we know we can't do what we tell you we could do. We're just doing this for people. They tell you they're just doing it for people who wants to get some type of information. And you got videos of people online crying. I think even Jessica Alba was on a video crying about her results. Oh, I'm just so disappointed in my results. I would have never thought. They can't tell you that anyway. That power belongs to Yahweh Shai. All they do is they can't explain how they did it exactly, but the video's up. I think I even put a video up on it. But they take the strands and it goes from your mother's side, and they just look at the percentages of people, of who else on the planet Earth, where those people could possibly be. So they could say, okay, well, 70%, there's a lot of people that live in Ghana that lives there. But then there's like maybe about 7%, you find 7% in Germany and all this. So then they just tell you these are approximations, but people will look at it and say, oh, I'm 90% Nigerian and 7% German. There's no such thing. It's a joke, but guess what? You find out now that that company is being sold to the highest bidder. So all these people who use this service and gave their information to Amalek, because it's Amalek that runs these things, by the way. The Amalekites, the so-called Jews, they run these DNA tests, but it's illegal in the land of Israel. Go figure. Go figure. So it says DNA testing company 23andMe, which is run by Amalek, wins court approval to sell data after it files for bankruptcy. What does that mean for your privacy? And 23andMe is owned by Amalekite. Her name is Annie Wojcicki. You know, that Susan Wojcicki person, the one who was the CEO of YouTube. They're sisters and they're both Amalekites. But the YouTube, she's in the spirit world now. It says this company, which has over 15 million customers worldwide, said it will voluntarily file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy to, quote, facilitate a sale process to maximize the value of its business. 23andMe received permission from a judge to try and sell its most valuable asset, customers' DNA data. So it's up for grabs. And how much you are going to be willing to bet that this is going to fall into the hands of some type of law enforcement agency or the FBI, because they've already confirmed, even on their website, that they will cooperate with law enforcement, as it says under their privacy and protection. They say we will not release any individual level personal information to law enforcement without your explicit consent unless required by law. We closely scrutinize all law enforcement requests, and we will only comply with court orders, subpoenas, search warrants, or other requests that we determine are legally valid. So the police have access to your information and your data, and you don't even know what it is they're capable of doing with that. And mind you, this service is completely voluntary. You are sending in your most precious data, you could say, about you, and you're giving it to the devil. You're giving them everything they need to know about you, biometric and everything, and you're giving it to the devil. For what? So now it's going to be, I'm willing to bet, they say in May is when they're going to figure out, but I'm willing to bet that the purchaser of this company is going to be some type of way regarding the law enforcement. Or it might even be the gates of hell. It might even be Gil Bates. And now all these people are like, well, what does this mean for my data? So they're being urged to go in there and delete their thing. But they already got it. They already got your information, man. They got that on paper. I mean, they got that in the flesh because you have to physically submit it in. They got it in the flesh. And, you know, what's happening is it's being found out that all of these people, man, who basically just trusted in Egypt, and even Israelites, you know, you got this happening. You got the No Jumper podcast being indicted, these Whack 100, all these characters of the world, And you have Israelites who went out and voluntarily linked themselves with these characters in the world because they just had their guard down. You know, this is what happens when you operate outside of the protection of the scriptures, because you believe that there's nothing that can happen. Well, you see in the long run, look at what happens. And what you should be upset at is to know that you had included yourself voluntarily with this world. So now that this world is starting to crumble, you're just sitting there wondering like, well, hopefully I don't get caught up in this because, hey, I didn't do nothing wrong. Well, if you'd have just followed the scriptures and stayed in the protection of the word, you wouldn't have no concern about what could that possibly mean for you. You know, Whack 100, it's already been hinted that that guy's a cop anyway. And then next thing you know, he's last seen tipping off gang members. And, you know, how does he know that gang members, the cops are on the way, you know? So people suspected, man, are you a cop? These guys are cops. Adam 22, age 22, these guys are cops. And guess who's linked with them? Men of Israel, men of these Israelite groups. But guess what? Great Millstone, we not a part of none of that. Why? Because we operate in the scriptures, right? And in the long run, these guys think, I don't have to worry about anything. Ain't nothing gonna happen because they don't know that we're in the end of days. But now that shit's just starting to crumble down, all these people just, if you're compromised, it's gonna really show exactly why you're compromised. And those who just trusted in this truth and kept it, uh, followed the scriptures to the best of our ability and didn't go astray, we're seeing just how safe we are in this truth. Sirach 12. That's wrong. Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. Though he humbleth himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his wrath hath not been altogether wiped away. Never trust him. Doesn't matter. Sending your DNA in to get a DNA test to prove that you're an Israelite. Wow, what a joke. Okay. Now your data might be out there, and you don't know what Esau Edom would do with that. You just don't. He could set you up. He could frame you. He could do whatever you want because you gave it to him because you just thought nothing's gonna happen. Isaiah 30, and that's you're going on these platforms with these non-believers. Come to find out they're agents, they're cops, they're linked in with the feds, and you're gonna haul your big stupid behind down there and mingle yourself with these heathen, with these cops, with these agents, with these degenerates for yourselves. Well, you're compromised and there's a stain on you, and now you're linked. So it's always best to just keep yourself from this world as possible. And we're seeing in the long run, in the end, now that we're at the end, the reward of patience and not going and operating on our own will and operating outside of the truth. Isaiah 30, verse 3, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. Well, what's the worst that could happen? I don't see nothing wrong. I'm going on Unbelievers podcast, and I'm dealing with these guys that ain't even in the truth, and we're talking about gang members and gang violence and all this stuff. Ain't nothing gonna happen, man. We're good. What's the worst that could happen? Okay, so you trust in this system. You trust that things just going to continue as normal. You trust that Esau Edom isn't at work, that he doesn't have agents in camps, that he doesn't have agents going around trying to gather information. People going on Vlad TV and airing out their own business, snitching on themselves. Agent 22 snitching on themselves. These people snitching on themselves because these guys are linked in with the government. And he keeps an eye on anybody who believes to be a threat. So being an Israelite, you're going to go down there and give them information. You're just going to give it to them. Just like you're going to give your information to the devil for an ancestry test because you're trying to link yourself back to Africa to prove that you're an Israelite. You're just giving it to them. No fear, no sense of alertness, no being aware. Like, no, man, this man's the devil. I don't need to go to these people. For what? I got the truth. I don't got to go to those people. I don't need them for nothing. I mean, they're just setting the snares and you're just voluntarily just going and giving yourself over there because you're just trusting in the shadow of Egypt. You're just walking down to Egypt and just trusting in the shadow of Egypt. Well, it says, the strength of Pharaoh shall be your shame. That's coming for the men of IUIC because they got a lot of money and fancy lawyers and they're deep into the system and they're cutting deals. They think they're untouchable. They forgot that they're still dealing with the Edomites. And the trust in the shadow of Egypt, your confusion. So for all these guys who run down to Egypt for safety, who strengthen themselves in this world and the people in this world for safety, for security, for advancement in the flesh to promote their names, compromising yourselves, you're gonna see the reward for being compromised. And those who just stayed in the scriptures and just stayed in the truth, doing the first works like we were commanded, we're seeing our reward. Our reward is that when everything starts to fall down, we're safe because we never left the borders of the truth. We never left the borders of the sanctuary that Yahushua set up for us, which is just to abide in this truth. That's it. So come May, we're going to see what's going to happen with this. I'll definitely follow that. But a lot of people, a lot of Israelites are going to be compromised, and a lot of Israelites are compromised as of now. And we're seeing the reward, man. We're seeing that it's basically gonna be, this is why you had no business doing this, doing that. That's basically gonna be, our rebuke towards these guys real soon. Shalom.